Well, welcome back to LOC, Life on Cars. It's Paul here, and I am doing a two-part special couple of episodes. Basically, we are going to do a ultimate buyer's guide for the Rolls-Royce and Bentley SZ series. I've been asked by a few of my subscribers for, well, probably about the last 6 months or so. I keep getting messages and emails saying, please Paul, will you do a buyer's guide for the Rolls-Royce SZ, because I've learned so much about this car, resurrecting it, bringing it back from the dead, if you like. If you're new to Life on Cars, check out the playlist and you'll see that we've brought this car back from being abandoned. So I've learned a lot about it. So I feel like I'm ready now to do a really good buyer's guide. So we're going to do it over two parts because there's a lot of talk about on these cars. They're a bit special. They're a bit different to buying a normal car. So I want to give you as much information as I can. You'll find out bits and pieces that I've learned over the journey. So episode 1, we're going to cover the exterior of the car and the interior, what to look for, what problems that you might find, and tips and things like that for purchasing a Rolls-Royce SZ. So without further ado, sit back, grab yourself a cup of tea, let's get into it. Episode 1 of the Rolls-Royce SZ Buyer's Guide. Let's go! Get in! So can you believe it? It was way back in 1980 at the Nice Motor Show when the Silver Spirit was first revealed, and Rolls-Royce had kind of delayed bringing out this new model. So the previous model was the Silver Shadow, or the SY range as it was known by, and the Spirit and the Bentley derivatives like the Mulsanne are known as the SZ range, which is what this car is. So it's a Rolls-Royce Silver Spirit, but they're known as the SZ model range. So yeah, 1980 they were revealed, and some of the early cars were registered, very early 80s. So some of them are actually now 41, 42 year old, the very early ones. My car is a 1994, mine's known as the Silver Spirit III. And we're going to take a really close look around this and give you as much information as I can in terms of buying one of these. So the very first ones of the Silver Spirit and Bentley range, they had the 6.75 litre engine carried over from the Silver Shadow, and the early ones had the 3-speed GM gearbox. Later Spirits, like mine, gained the 4-speed GM automatic gearbox, but pretty much the engine remained unchanged until later models, when you started to get Bosch K-Jetronic fuel injection, and then later on down the line you got full multi-point fuel injection, which was known as the Zytec system, and also you got multi-coils, which again my car has. So the later cars had more advanced fueling and ignition components, but underneath that is the same 6.75 litre Rolls-Royce engine. If you're watching this little guide from the USA, all cars that went to the USA, because of the tighter emission laws there at the time, will have had fuel injection, Bosch K-Jetronic fuel injection, where some of the earlier cars in the UK, you can actually find them on carburetors. So that's quite interesting. The other interesting part of the story is when these were initially introduced, a couple of years later, or quite early on actually, they did produce a couple of model variations. So there was the Silver Spur, which was basically the long wheelbase version of the Spirit, and I believe it was around 1982 when the Bentley Mulsanne Turbo was released as well. So same body style as this, but obviously all branded up as a Bentley and fitted with a turbo engine as well, which was quite an exciting prospect for people who were interested in buying something possibly that like a little bit more sporty feel to it and a bit more of a driver's car. So yeah, the Bentley turbos were on the way as well, as early as 1982. And they carried on updating the Bentley range, and by the time 1984-85 came along, they dropped the Mulsanne name and the Bentley Turbo R was introduced. The R stands for road holding, and I think they made a few changes, stiffer anti-roll bars and things like that to just improve the car a little bit so that it could handle the extra power a little bit better. And you could also get a non-turbocharged version of the Bentley, which was known as the Bentley 8. And I think that carried on until around about 1993 when it was changed to the Bentley Brooklands. And by the time 1987 came along, all cars were on ABS. And by 1990, all cars were on active ride damping systems. And they just carried on improving these cars until around about 1998, when the very last of the Spirits were coming to an end. In fact, most people think that the Spirit is really the very last of the real crew-built Rolls-Royces, because after that was when BMW started to get involved with supplying engines and things like that. So yeah, 1998 is seen as kind of like the end of the real crew-built era, if you like. Apparently there was a few cars that were built the SZ range right up until 2002, but I've yet to see one that new. I've been to various Rolls-Royce shows. I've not seen one that's crossed over into 2001, 2002 yet, so I'll have to keep my eye out when I go to the next show. Yeah, most of them are come to the end of like I say, production about 1998, 1999. So anyway, that's a little bit of a brief history on the car. So let's get into it and get outside and have a wander around and talk about some of the visual things that we need to be looking for if we're going to think about purchasing one of these amazing cars. So those of you that follow the channel, you know that the very first time I came across this car, it was abandoned in a car park, which is where it had been sat, very similar to the car park I'm in now, and it had been sat for 5 years in the same spot. But I was able to, because of my mechanical and car background and spending years and years in and around the motor trade, I could see that it was worth saving, even when it was in super dirty, covered in tree sap, moss, whatever. I could see that it was worth saving. And the reason I knew that from just walking around the car was looking at the condition of the bodywork in terms of corrosion. And that really is a very good starting point when you're looking at one of these. Is the corrosion setting in? So let's have a look at some of the areas where we need to be really careful with the dreaded rust. So yeah, I walked up to the car, and the first thing I'm looking at is things like the wheel arches. Now, I will cover a little bit more about corrosion in episode 2. Remember, I said at the start of this video, this is part 1 of a 2-part buyer's guide that I'm putting together. But yeah, even when this car was abandoned and left in the car park, when I saw it for the first time, one of the things I noticed is that the wheel arches and where they meet the sill at the bottom here are corrosion free. And just noticing that, and then coming along to the back and seeing the same again on the back arches, and then being able to kind of get down a little bit and see the sill area and seeing that there's no bubbling and nasty corrosion. And then thirdly, looking at these rear pockets, I was kind of thinking, well, what a shame, this car deserves to be saved because the corrosion hadn't set in. And I guess it depends how far do you want to go. You know, if you want to get a car really cheap, the budget end of the scale, then yes, you may need to think about some paintwork that might need doing. But the problem with that is it's very expensive. and very labour intensive. So unless you've got deep pockets, then, you know, cars with serious bodywork problems, you may need to walk on by. But this one is really solid around the wheel arches. Now on these, it's interesting to note that the doors are aluminium. So all 4 doors are aluminium. The tailgate is aluminium, and the bonnet is aluminium. But the rest of the car, so the front wings, the sills, back quarters, are all steel. So obviously those different materials react in a different way to time and weather. And one of the things that can happen with the doors is we can get a little bit of oxidization starting around the door handles. So have a really close look around the door handles, and I don't know if you can see that in the video, there is a tiny bit starting on my car. Same on this handle here, tiny little bit. While it's in my ownership, it's probably never going to get any worse because it's going to be kept dry stored. But it's worth, you know, taking a close look at the door handles to see. Interestingly, that front one there doesn't have any oxidization, but this back one, again, there's a tiny little bit just there, and it's a negotiating point, you know, because if you want it perfect, then obviously that would need to be repaired. It would need the handles removing and repainting. It may be something I get done on this car eventually, but for now it's not something I'm going to be doing in the very near future, because obviously once you start messing around with paintwork, the originality is gone. And you know, sometimes a little bit of patina, it tells a story, doesn't it? It tells a story. These are painted on, by the way, by hand in the factory. These are called twin fine lines. So if the twin fine lines have disappeared, then obviously that's a bit of a giveaway that someone's maybe done a repaint. Or if they have been replaced with stickers, vinyl stickers, then obviously that's another giveaway that there's maybe been some paint carried out on the car. So yeah, take a good look at those twin fine lines, because that might give you a bit of giveaway. The other thing, on these, they can suffer from corrosion around the windscreens. So take a close look where the windscreen joins on the body, especially on the bottom areas here, around the top. You can get a bit of delamination on the glass as well, which you can see is just starting slightly on mine there. It doesn't bother me, but there is a bit of delamination starting on the glass. But the main thing you're looking for is corrosion. And again, how this car hasn't suffered from that is a bit of a mystery really, because it's, those of you that watch the channel will know this car has never ever been garaged. So it's somehow managed to survive and stay corrosion free, which is a miracle really. So yeah, watch out for corrosion around the rear screen and the front screen as well. But other than that, you know, it's just like you would buy in any car really. It's about, you know, looking for excessive stone chips, any other paint damage, lacquer peel. Obviously on these, the bright work is worth paying close attention to. This is all stainless steel, so it will clean up and polish quite nicely, which I did on mine. But again, look at the condition, make sure the spirit of ecstasy is present and correct, and just take a close look around the headlamps here. They do have a sponge gasket which I've replaced on mine, which can fall to bits. It's not the end of the world, it's all fixable, but it's just worth taking a close look. These are glass as well, so make sure that there's no cracks in the lenses. Make sure all your wheel trims are present, because these are not cheap to replace. So on this Spirit III, it's an alloy wheel with a beauty ring trim finisher round the outside circumference. Then you have a wheel cover here, hubcap, and then you have a centre cap as well. These are not cheap to replace, so if there's any missing or if there's any damaged, then that's worth taking into account. The other thing that is quite often a problem on these is the rear bumper finishes, these rubber pieces here, these side pieces. They have a bracket, a metal bracket, a steel bracket in the back, which is how they attach to the, there's like a spring-loaded, see how I can move that in and out? It's like a spring-loaded bracket under there, and what can happen over time is it can corrode, it swells up, and then what you end up getting is this rubber splitting, and in some cases, the severe cases, these can detach altogether and end up falling off. So you need to have a good look at those rubber pieces. Again, have a good look along the back of the tailgate, because with this being alloy, if there's been any stone chips, you may be getting some oxidization along there. Make sure the rear lights are in good condition, no cracks. You know, it's just your typical walk around that you would do on any normal car, really, just looking for damage, looking for scratches, anything like that. Make sure you have a good look at the windscreen as well, make sure there's no major cracks or stone chips that need repairing. The other thing to look at on these as well is the mirrors. The mirrors can become loose and they don't fold properly. They should fold easily. I've had to repair my mirrors because they weren't, so they should fold in like that and then snap back into place. Obviously check the glass as well on the mirrors. You'll notice this Spirit III has a quarter glass here. The very last Spirits and Bentley versions, they deleted this quarter light here and they actually mounted the mirror here as well. One of the ways you can spot one of the last Spirits is they have colour-coded door mirrors which are mounted here, and that glass is missing. And the other thing that is different on the very last Spirits is the bumpers are colour-coded as well. So that's one way you can spot a difference between a Spirit III and, well, we don't call it a Spirit IV, we just call it the final cars were just called Spirit, but I guess they are a Mark IV. So yeah, interesting. You see mine does have the Spirit III badge. So yeah, for me it's all about corrosion. If there's corrosion, if there's a bit of light corrosion around the arches, that's fine, that can be dealt with fairly easy. But if it's heavy corrosion and it's starting to bubble and blister, and especially along the rear pockets as well, and along the sills, then you know you're talking quite a lot of labour intensive repair. The panels are all available, but it can become expensive. Like I say, I will talk a little bit more about that when we do part 2, because we're going to do a bit of an underbody inspection. What else haven't I mentioned? Well, tyres. So a lot of these were spec'd with white wall tyres when they left the factory. They were originally on Avons. You can't get Avons currently in this size. These are a 15-inch tyre. So, but luckily there is some other options. So one of the popular ones is the Viatour Galaxies, which is what I've had fitted to this. They're the correct size. They seem to be performing really, really well, and they've got the nice white walls as well. So budget for replacing tyres if they're aged, if they're cracked. Obviously check the tread, but quite often with these Rolls-Royces, it's more to do with age-related cracks in the tyres more than anything else. So yeah, but options are available. But again, it's another negotiating point if you're thinking about buying one of these. Final things, you know, check around all your bright work. Make sure everything looks in order, make sure the rubber seals aren't falling out or perished. You know, I mean, remember, even the later ones like my car, you know, this is 31-year-old now. So things like the rubber seals around the windscreen and around the doors, you know, take a close look at things like this and make sure everything is in good order. I'm just having a bit of a smile to myself when I'm telling you all this stuff, because I basically broke all these rules when I bought this car. I broke every single rule apart from the wheel arches and the bodywork. That was really the only thing that I really checked on this car before taking the plunge, because I just wanted to save it. I took a massive risk. You know, they say don't buy the first Rolls-Royce that you find. Well, I did. You know, you should never buy a car that doesn't have any service history. I did. You should never buy a car that you've never heard running before. I did. I broke every single rule. So I took a massive gamble when I bought this car, but I could see that there was good bones underneath it, if that makes sense. I couldn't get underneath it and inspect it properly, but I took a chance, you know, and it paid off. And sometimes that happens, but you know, if you're going to buy one of these that's either from a dealer or privately, do your due diligence, you know, do your checks, and hopefully you will be able to spot any potential pitfalls as you're going along. But even if you find a good one, you will expect to probably spend around about £2,000 to £3,000 a year in maintenance, I would suggest. That's what you should be budgeting for. It may be more, it may be less, depends on the mileage obviously that you're doing, but that's the kind of money that it will take to maintain one of these each year. You know, that's tends to be the what a lot of people kind of a lot of experts will tell you, that you know you need to budget for about £2,000 to £3,000 worth of servicing and maintenance per year on a car like this. They are complex, especially the later ones. There's a lot of 1990s electronics that can fail, as we will talk about just in a minute when we get onto the interior and the electrics. So you have to budget for that sort of stuff. But it shouldn't put you off getting one of these. They are incredible value for money at the moment, incredible value for money. Currently in 2025 in the UK, you can get an incredibly well looked after, beautiful Rolls-Royce SZ or Bentley SZ for around about £15,000. That should get you a really, really nice car. If you spend more than that, it should be incredibly clean, almost immaculate. It might even be able to get a really low mileage one for, you know, if you're getting spending £18,000 to £20,000, then it should be almost perfect. You know, I mean, that's incredible value for money when you consider how much these cars were new. The original owner for my car paid £167,000 for this car when it was new. £167,000 in 1994. So if you think you can get a really nice one now for about £15,000, they're not going to stay that price forever. You could probably get into one quite a lot cheaper than that, but it will need some work. Those of you that know the story on mine, you know mine was cheap, but it was cheap for a reason. It was cheap because there was no history, it had been abandoned, there was an MOT failure on record, there was problems with the suspension, problems with the brakes. I can go on and on, you just need to check the playlist. So that's why mine was cheap, but I was prepared to take it on as a project, you know. And you can still do that. You can still get one cheaper, but be prepared to spend a little bit of money to get it to where it can be used and enjoyed. Right, what's next? Interior. Right, we're back in the wonderful interior of this Silver Spirit III, which is incredibly beautiful. It really is. I'm so proud of this car. I'm proud that I've been able to rescue it and clean it up and bring it back to where it is now. So this is Connolly leather, the best leather you can buy in the world. And it's also wood veneer, obviously, all around, door cappings, dashboard. Even the headlining is leather, Connolly leather. The dashboard is also Connolly leather. This is a purpley wildberry colour to go with the paintwork, which is wildberry. The stitching on my seats is wildberry as well, along with the carpets and the lamb's wool rugs. So anyway, you know the drill. What we've got to talk about now is, what do we need to check if we're going to buy one of these? Well, you basically need to check every single electrical item on the car, first of all. So you need to get the ignition on, go through all the various switches. Does everything work? Especially things like the seats. These are prone to failure, the electric seats, because they have a computer or an ECU under each seat which controls the memory function, and it controls the way the seat moves, the seat heaters, etc. And it's also linked to the door mirrors. That's what these buttons are for here. These are control the door mirrors. And quite often, unfortunately, they have a battery inside the ECU, which is for the memory function, and the battery can leak. And when it leaks, it damages the circuit board, and then the seats stop working. So yeah, check your seats. Make sure they're all moving. And make sure that your mirrors are working as well, both sides. And you can check your memory functions as well. So that's really, really important. Then it's just a case of running through all the various switch gear, making sure things like all the windscreen wipers work. Obviously the heating and ventilation system. One of the things with this, by the way, is this will only work when the engine's running. So when the ignition is on, you won't get any fans or anything. That's normal. This only comes to life when the engine's running. So the aircon's designed to run all the time. You can leave it in auto, or you can have it in low, and then you just move the dial. So this is your upper temperature control, this is your lower temperature control. You've got your screen recirculation, or leave it on auto. So this should all work. There has been reports of problems. I actually thought I had a problem with mine, because originally when I first got the car up and running, it seemed to be chucking warm air out down below, even when we had this on cold. But mysteriously, that problem seems to have sorted itself out. So maybe it was just lack of use and all the servos are working now. But yeah, touch wood, my heating system is working now. There's some quite quirky things on it. So there's things like this button here, which you can press, and that then changes the fuel gauge into an oil level gauge. So let me just give you a quick demo of that. So let's see if it works with the ignition on. So at the moment, that's telling me the fuel tank's half full. But if I press that button, so it goes all the way to the top, that's telling me that the oil is full. Take my finger off, goes back to fuel reading. Very nice, very clever. Okay, hazards and everything. But yeah, it's just like, again, like you were buying any other car. Go through all the electrics, see what's working. Is there any problems? Is there any faults? These are your vents. So you basically pull out this lovely knob here, and basically you get air coming out. Push it in, the air stops. The other thing on these cars that are prone to issues are the electric windows. So run through all your electric windows. Make sure your electric windows are working. They'll probably they should go up and down really smooth, like this one here on my driver's side. That's because I've serviced that one. I've done a video about servicing that, but yeah, check all the windows because chances are some of them may need maintenance. The other one is central locking. Central locking should work off the key, and if it's a later car, you will have a remote control, or you should have 2 remote controls. And again, I've done a video on that where I've talked about all the how the central locking works. But it's worth checking because it is a common thing to find one or more doors is not locking properly. I actually have that problem on my car, and I've yet to get around to fixing it. So my passenger front door does not lock on the central locking. So I've obviously got a solenoid problem there. So that will mean I'll need to strip the door card off and get into that on a later date, and I'll cover that on a video for you. But yeah, check all your interior lights work when you open the door. Check the horn, sounds like it should. And yeah, just make sure everything electrical is working in the car. But then after that, really, it's looking at the condition of the interior. So it's about looking at your leather seats, making sure there's no rips or any serious damage. It can be repaired, but again, it's expensive to get it repaired. The woodwork as well, looking at the door cappings and making sure that they're not badly split or damaged. They can be repaired, but it will cost quite a bit of money. The dashboard as well, look at the condition of the dashboard, make sure there isn't any serious cracks or damage. So I've been quite lucky with this car because the woodwork is in really remarkable condition, really. When I think about what this car's been through, it's never been in the shade, it's been left outside all of its life, and the sun has been coming round and round every day and hitting various parts of the interior of this car. But because of the quality of the interior, it's survived. It's managed to cope with all that different sunlight coming through and temperature change, and it's somehow amazingly survived all that abuse after 31 years. So yeah, but yeah, unfortunately you do see some of these where they need completely restoring because the wood has completely disintegrated, the veneer and the lacquer has separated. So it's just something to look for. But isn't it a beautiful place to be? Isn't it? Absolutely. Before we finish on the interior, there are a couple of things you might want to check in the boot. So let's have a look. These are prone to having problems with the boot lock and latch. So you might want to check with the seller that the boot is locking correctly and unlocking with the central locking and the latch is working correctly. But what I wanted to mention was, sorry about all the junk in here, we have been to a couple of shows lately. I wanted to mention where the toolbox and various other things should be in one of these Silver Spirits. So basically it's behind this panel here, so you lift these 2 leather straps off and you undo these clips here, and then that will fall down, and there is your toolkit in there. That's all your jack and everything in there. Let me just bring that forward a bit. There's all your jack, etc. in that tray, and then you want to be pulling this one out and seeing if you've got your proper spare bulbs toolkit in there. That should be all present and correct, because if it isn't, these are quite expensive to replace. Let me show you inside here. Look at this, you get a bulb set and you get a lovely toolkit as well. So that was actually had been stolen from my car, so I had to source a replacement, which is in there now. days. If you're wondering as well, there's a battery isolator switch here, and the battery is actually under the floor, under there, under that wooden panel. So yeah, you should actually have a bottle of LHM in there. I've got mine in the garage at the moment, but that's where you should see a bottle of spare fluid for the braking system. So these just clip back on like that, and then like that. Okay, worth checking the condition of the carpet as well in the boot as well. And the carpet on the boot lid, or the trunk if you're watching from America. You should never slam one of these. Watch how this closes. It's weighted perfectly. Watch. That's it. It's shut. Very easy. Well, I think that's it for part one. Otherwise this video is going to be way too long. So we're going to do this in two parts. Wind. Right, we're out with the wind. Okay, I hope you enjoyed episode one. It's nearly 45 minutes long. I apologise for that. I know YouTube viewers don't like long episodes, so we're cutting it off at that. But I'll be back next week with part two. Part two, tune in, it'll be very interesting. We're going to get underneath the car, properly underneath, using a lift. And I'm going to take you through all the things to look for when you are underneath the car. A lot of them you can see if you just crawl underneath. But we're going to get it up on a lift and do it properly. So tune in next week. Underbody inspection, road test, what to look for on a road test, and what to look for underneath the bonnet as well. And I think that should pretty much do it. So tune in next week for episode 2 of this ultimate buyer's guide for the Rolls-Royce SZ and Bentley series. If you like this episode, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe. That would be really fantastic. Check out the playlist for the other videos on the Rolls-Royce and other cars we've got going on Life on Cars. But in the meantime, drive carefully, stay safe, and I will see you next week back on the channel. Take care now. Bye bye. Bye bye.